this morning in the Cowboy State Daily Morning Show with Jake. As we come out of break, I want to talk about the weather forecast because it impacts travel. We're going to speak with Don Day later.
Jake, it's podcast time. It's podcast time.
Oh, my goodness, Wendy, I'm so sorry. I was
That's okay.
in the middle of something.
You were in the middle of Jake in the morning with Cowboy State Daily. This is so exciting.
No one knows about it but me, but yeah, I'm happy to share.
Well, now it's time to tell everybody about it. Jake Nichols, folks. We'll start over here a little bit. Welcome to the Roundup, Cowboy State Daily's podcast, where we interview really interesting people from around the Cowboy State. Today, we are interviewing Cowboy State Daily's own Jake Nichols. You've read his articles. I mean, his Drinking Wyoming in Du Bois is legendary. You've got to go back and read that if you haven't read it yet. But Jake has such a fantastic writing style. It's his voice almost comes off the page. Well, actually, his voice is coming off the page now because his voice is going to be over the internet, hopefully soon over your local radio station, because Jake is launching Cowboy State Daily's very first morning show. Jake Nichols, what are we doing here?
Wow. Well, thanks for the build-up. Yeah, I like to think that my writing style is really an extension of my first passion, my number one skill set, and that's as a radio guy. And maybe nobody knows that, but they're going to know, I guess.
They're definitely going to know now because you are going to be launching October 1st, folks. We're launching the Cowboy State Daily's morning show with Jake Nichols, and it's going to be everything that you expect from a morning show. We got a little bit of a glimpse of it when we interrupted Jake at first when he was getting ready and rehearsing for this morning show. Jake, tell us about Cowboy State Daily's morning show. What are we going to hear when we tune in at 6 a.m. Monday through Friday? What are we going to hear?
Well, I mean, it's hard to envision something that isn't happening yet, but I've done morning shows before, so I know what it needs to be. 4 hours morning for people, it's to kind of get their morning started. But I think one thing that'll be typical of the morning show, it's going to have all the elements that morning shows have. It's going to, have weather, keep people informed, all the info you need to start your day. And then I think one of a couple of the things that morning shows don't have the luxury of doing is we can look at the stories of the day and drill down a little deeper. There's always stories, Wendy, like we read, and it leaves you with more questions than answers, or it leaves you wanting to talk about it. And it's water cooler talk, and we're going to do it on radio. We're going to invite people to call in. We got a number of people can call in, and I want to talk to people. I want to, when we see one of these interesting stories, I want to see what Wyoming thinks about it. And yeah, we're also going to cover the state, border to border. I've been around the state. I love the state, and I don't want to leave anybody out. Like from Meeteetse and Ten Sleep to Laramie and Casper, we're going to try to get to all of you.
That's a great thing that you brought up, that you have been from corner to corner in the state of Wyoming, because you are a sports guy. You're an announcer. You are a radio sports broadcaster, but you're also a DJ. And Jake, tell us what you've done here in Wyoming. How long have you been in the state now?
Since 1997.
Okay, so you've been here. I feel the same way. We got here in 98. Same thing. Yeah. So you're practically a local. You've been here for 40 years now, more than that. And what is it? No, not 40, 30. 30.
Yeah.
Yeah. Almost 30 years. Whew, got ahead of myself there. So you've been here for
too many.
It sounds like too many. You've been here for a really long time. Tell us a little bit about your activities since you became a Wyoming cowboy in 1997.
Yeah, I came out here specifically to cowboy. I was living in New York City, living the dream. And I'll tell you an interesting thing. I should write a book one day because I have the title. I just need like more interesting page turning stuff. I have the title already. Jake, my journey from Jackson Heights to Jackson Hole. Because Jackson Heights is a suburb of Queens, where it was the first place I lived out of college. So when my life started, I went to Jackson Heights, and now I ended up in Jackson Hole. So I'm probably trending in the wrong direction. But I lived in New York City, and New York was great, but there was too many people. And I thought, I got to get out of here. I got to go the polar opposite. So I like, what state has the least population? I contemplated Alaska, and I settled on Wyoming because more people were leaving Wyoming than coming to Wyoming back then. So I had a little bit of cowboy, some horse background, and I came out to cowboy. I worked at a ranch in Wyoming. I started just the summers, and then I went full time. Just came out here to work on a ranch in Wyoming, 1997, Lost Creek Ranch.
That is so great. But you came out here to cowboy. That is a miles and miles away from what you were doing in New York City, because you were rubbing elbows with some pretty well-known names when you were in New York City, Jake.
Yeah, in New York, I did a lot of different things. My day job, I was a press agent for a lot of comedians. Jay Leno, Jerry Seinfeld, just about every comedian you can think of in the day. And this is in the 90s when they were all touring. Like Jay Leno was a road king. This guy was doing stand up like 300 nights a year. It was insane. Stand up was huge in the 90s, clubs and doing stand up. So, I was busy as a press. I remember Leno, this is before Leno had his show. Leno would appear on Johnny Carson's show, and Johnny would say, I read somewhere you're a big car buff. And I thought, I know where you read that. That was in the press release that I sent you this morning. So I was a press agent for these comedians in the day. At night, I was a cameraman for MTV and HBO. We shot a lot of videos of bands, live musicians. I pointed a camera at a lot of huge bands. Pearl Jam, remember Eddie Vedder. And I also interviewed these bands. I was also a music critic for a lot of magazines as a journalist. So yeah, I did a lot of stuff in New York. Wow. Now that I
Whoa.
think about it.
Now that you think about it, yeah, I guess. I think just a side note here, I think that's one of the coolest things about Wyoming is that you never know what people's backstories were before they came to this state. And Jake, you have one of the best backstories that got you here to Wyoming. But now, since you've been here, you started out cowboying, but then you moved back into, which you have said before is your first love, radio. How did you get involved in the radio scene here in Wyoming?
Yeah. I mean, I've always loved radio from all ends of it. I remember as a kid with a transistor under the pillow at night when I went to bed. I mean, back in my day, that's what we did to fall asleep. And so I did a little bit of radio in college, and I called some sports events on radio in college. In New York, there was just no opportunity. It was a guy named Howard Stern that kind of was dominating the New York City radio scene. So yeah, I was out of a job there. And then when I came to Wyoming, worked at a ranch, and the ranch was owned by a gentleman who also owned a radio station. And he found out that I had a radio background. Next thing you know, I was working on that radio station. This is in Jackson Hole, Wyoming. And yeah, I kind of started the side job of back into radio. It was fun.
And then that took you then onto sports broadcasting. You're a rodeo announcer as well. And so that takes we've seen you with your cowboy hat on from time to time. I'll do the interviews for the newscast, and you'll be in an arena, a rodeo arena, with your cowboy hat on. I'm like, who is this guy? This is not the Jake Nichols I know.
I do, in addition to having done a morning show that lasted for a while on Jackson Radio, and that was a lot of fun. That's where I got my really cut my teeth on morning show radio. I also follow the high school sports, football, basketball, baseball, and I announce play by play for our Jackson Bronx high school sports team. And just this last couple of years, been doing a lot of rodeo and a lot of windshield time, eating a lot of diesel smoke out there, as they say in the rodeo game, and trying to hit rodeo to rodeo and do that from mylocalrodeo.com and also in conjunction with the Cowboy Channel Plus app. So, yeah, that's been fun.
That's so cool. So we've been able to hear you all this time, and we didn't know. If we tuned into the Cowboy
Yeah.
Channel app, we'd be able to oh my goodness. Okay, so now we know. Now we know that. But you're also one of the other things that I really find entertaining is when I interview you for our newscasts, is that I'll catch up with you and all of a sudden there's like this beautiful venue behind you and there's lights and you're wearing like a salmon color blazer and I'm like again, the many, many faces of Jake Nichols. You are a wedding DJ, and I can just imagine how much fun those brides and grooms and their families have with you behind the mic.
I'm heading out to a wedding actually today, later today, tonight. Be doing a wedding, but yeah, that's fun. I mean, what Jackson Hole is such a wedding industry. I DJ 80 weddings a season from May to the end of October, and I also play Sundays at the $1 Million Cowboy Bar in Jackson. So yeah, DJing is fun, me. Because I just love music, love to share that.
Well, we are so glad that you're able to bring that joy to so many people, but now you get to bring that energy to the Cowboy State Daily morning show. So let's switch gears here and let's talk Cowboy State Daily. Why? Why does Cowboy State Daily branch off into a 4-hour morning show? What's the goal here? What do we want to bring?
Well, if you listen to our ownership and management, it's a plan for world domination, beginning with the Cowboy State of Wyoming and then expanding out until we just run the whole show. I mean, just it was a
Oh my gosh, that's
natural.
that's fantastic. Okay, yeah.
It was a but speaking, speaking for me outside of the marketing business aspect, it's a lateral pivot that kind of makes sense to slide over into other medias. You see other news agencies doing it as well. We're already in the digital news source. We already have you, Wendy, doing radio news. We have you doing video news, which is practically TV at this point. We have podcasts. So, I mean, we're doing everything but radio. If somebody said, hey, what about radio? And Jake can do radio. It just seemed like a natural fit. Again, to be able to expand on what Cowboy State Daily does better than anybody, and that's cover news, show Wyoming to Wyomingites. It's just a mirror. That's all media has ever been. Is just we want to reflect back what the state's thinking, what the state is doing, and be everywhere with breaking news. Radio has some immediacy with that to be able to do things in real time. But yeah, it's just to keep extending out what we're already doing.
And so one of the things I think that at Cowboy State Daily we do really well is to talk about the people. The people are really who make the news. And I think that that's what people in Wyoming care about and I think that's what kind of sets us apart. We're not just tossing headlines out at people. We're diving into the people behind the stories. So you're going to be talking to our reporters just like I do on our newscast. You're going to be talking to the reporters, but you're getting more than just a 30-second soundbite. Tell me about what your platform is to talk to our reporters.
All right. It may take a minute because this part really interests me, and this really why I want to do radio, Cowboy State Daily Radio. I want to talk to the reporters, and I want to talk to them in a way when we're talking about their story. How did the story land in your lap? How hard did you have to dig to get it? How difficult was it to tell it neutrally down, neutral down the middle, and not bring in any kind of slant? And then I want to maybe push them a little bit on, I didn't understand this part. What does this mean? talking to our own reporters, yeah, I want to bring them to life and introduce them. You see somebody's name come off a page when I talk to them, hopefully. But it also introduces one of my favorite things about radio, the intimacy of radio, like no other media, like not like digital news, not like your smart screen. I know there's influencers on Insta that are really good at what they do, but nothing replaces the intimacy of radio. It's someone talking into your ear. And it's always been that way. I know TV was going to destroy that. TV was going to kill radio. It never did. Radio's still here because of the ease of being able to get it. When you have when I got a million channels on cable TV, and then when I got a million channels on Netflix, you know how many of the 100 channels on TV I watch? Like 2. 1% of them. When you have unlimited access to podcasts in your car, when AM, FM radio is yanked out of it in 10 years and all you have is podcasts, you're going to turn it on and you're going to, well, what do I listen to? You're going to have too many choices. So anyway, radio's just always been there. And the guy who wakes you up in the morning, just the guy or gal has always been there. And that's why I think radio is going to be important channel of Cowboy State Daily morning show. What we're trying to do. Radios can touch you and get to you in unique ways and be real personal about it. And that's what it's about. Like you said, Wendy, people.
I think it's fantastic. I love what we're going to be doing here and what you're going to be doing here. But you're not just going to talk to our reporters. You're going to be talking to people who call in. You've got a phone number and everything, folks. You're going to want to write this down. It's going to be real easy to remember. But you're going to be able to let people call in and ask questions and make comments and things like that. Tell us about how the listeners are going to be able to interact with the morning show.
Yeah, we'll be an online morning show to begin with. So whatever platform you're viewing us on, there will be a video aspect to the radio show. You're certainly invited to chat in on that stream, on that channel. If you're watching us on video, on Vimeo, you have the ability to chat back. Twitch, YouTube, whatever you're watching us on, and we're trying to hit all the platforms. You'll be able to chat in real time. I'll be able to read that. But we also have the phone, and that's where I think some real radio magic happens. And by the way, it's 307 all throughout the Wyoming state. 307. We're in the 307. Get used to it if you're calling from out of state. 999-TALK, TALK. It's 999-8255. That's the number you would call in, and we're gonna chat. And I don't want to get bigger than myself here, Wendy, but I think that talk with someone about a topic, especially a touchy topic, I want to do it in a different way. And I know the radio more, and I'll tell you, here's an example. I remember doing a morning talk show on this Western Cowboy channel once years ago. We were talking about the Teton Redskins, a football team in Idaho. They were thinking about changing their name, because the Redskins, the whole thing was while Washington Redskins and the NFL were in the process of changing their name. And the typical Wyoming conservative radio talk show host who has a microphone and a blowtorch for a mouth would say, they're just trying to take away everything, changing. And that's tradition. It has nothing to do with the Native American. It's just the woke crowd trying to ruin it for everybody. And that's kind of where I started. And I had this young lady call me up, and she was Native American, and she set me straight real quick. And it was the most interesting phone call. And it was the 10 minutes of radio magic that I want to recreate every time someone calls. She has skin in the game, excuse the pun. And I didn't. I couldn't imagine what it'd be like for a team to be called the Redskins. She was Shoshone, I believe. And she said, look, I don't have an issue with maybe you calling a team the Warriors. That's something that's prideful maybe about my tribe. Or, call us the Utes. There's football teams out there called the Utes, an actual tribe. But to reduce me and my people to a color of skin, the Redskins, What about the Dallas Palefaces? And we came to an agreement, and she changed me 180. And it may not always be that way with a phone call. Maybe we will agree to disagree in the end, but we'll discourse. We'll talk civilly, something we can't do in American politics today. And I'm excited to do that. That's radio.
That is fantastic, Jake, and I love that. Those conversations are transformative if they are falling on those kind of ears, but this is the platform you're offering. You're offering the opportunity to talk about these things civilly, to talk about these things in a way that makes sense for everybody, where we can stop and sit and think, wow, maybe this person has a point. And I think that's awesome. That's absolutely awesome. But of course, we're more than politics at Cowboy State Daily. We are weather. We are the daily sunrises. We are the daily Darwins. Are you going to bring any of that into your radio
Yeah,
program?
I'm thinking about it. I'm trying to figure out what elements work over radio, but yeah, I'd like to.
Well, there are so many elements that we've got. We've got business, we've got energy, we have all of these really important topics. We've got crime, we've got all of our great reporters from Claire McFarland to Renee Jean to Mark Hines outdoors. And so, Jake, this is something that you're offering, is that opportunity to really spend more time with each of these things. But 4 hours, we have to fill, you've got to fill 4 hours every day. And I just think that that's so much fun to be able to get all of that really great stuff in there. Jake, tell us a little bit about where you're at in the process, because like I say, by the way, folks, we launch October 1st. So that's the date that you've got to get in your mind. But what are you doing between now and then to get yourself set up for this?
4 hours a day. You called it fun. I call it daunting. Yeah, when you put it like that. But I've been working, to kind of get a format going and a rhythm and how the morning is going to go. But yeah, I think 4 hours of morning talk, when you start from the starting line of Cowboy State Daily News, and just flesh out stories, just round out our morning stories. That's the bulk of the programming. And then, of course, we'll have weather, sports. We'll talk about everything. But I think there's enough meat there every morning to fill 4 hours of just expanding out on what our website and what our news offerings already do.
But you've also got the opportunity to talk to individuals that aren't our reporters, because you know so many people, Jake, in the Cowboy State. You have made some really great contacts. Are we going to have special guests throughout the day and be able to talk to people that normally we don't get to hear from?
Well, thankfully, technology definitely allows that. I hope to be able to, to tap anybody. If I'm talking about a University of Wyoming Cowboys, what's wrong with the Pokes? They're 0-2. They're playing so bad. Let's talk to Kevin McKinney and see if he can bring some insight. Yeah, that's the magic of radio, and I got a whole mess of buttons here in studio that I could just, let's get this guy on the phone. Yeah, so yeah, we hope to do that. That's morning radio as well.
That's going to be great. Jake, we're about out of time here. This has been such a great conversation, and we're so excited to get started with Cowboy State Daily Radio. What would you tell the people who are thinking, boy, do I want to have this on for 4 hours? Can I have this on for 4 hours? Where can people find this? Where are we going to be able to find our Cowboy State Daily Radio morning show?
Yeah, well, that's the greatest challenge. That's why we hand this over to our marketing team at Cowboy State Daily. I don't know how they're going to do it, but yeah, the plan is to begin, you got to begin somewhere. So we're hoping to get one radio affiliate to begin. And then, the plan is to be syndicated morning shows statewide. Wherever you are in the state, you turn on the radio and you're going to hear Cowboy State Daily Morning Show with Jake. That's the end goal. But for the beginning, I think it'll be social media platform. We're going to be an online radio station that you'll be able to see. If you already digest our news. If you already use the website and are on the website to read, if it happens to be 6 to 10 in the morning, you'll see the show going on in the background, and it'll just take one click, and then you'll be able to join the show and hear it and see it as well, which will be interesting. We have a video element. So yeah, I would just put it on in the corner, open that page, open that thing, put it up in the corner of your computer, and then continue with the other goofing around you do on the computer when you're supposed to be working, and just have us in the corner in your ear.
I think that that's going to be so fun. I mean, I'm getting excited just talking to you about it, getting that clip at the very beginning that we did, and knowing that that kind of energy is going to be coming through, getting that deep dive into our stories, getting a deep dive into Wyoming people, sports, weather. I mean, all the things that you expect from radio. I'm excited about it. Instead of must see TV, we're going to have must listen radio with Jake in the mornings. And I'm thinking
You're
that this is
hired.
gonna be okay, there we go. Well, I
I
already
like
am
it.
actually, but yeah, yeah. This is gonna be a great time, and Jake, thank you so much for bringing this element and expanding this element of Cowboy State Daily. I think we're all excited about turning on the computer, clicking that button at 6 a.m. on October 1st and see what sort of energy we can get to start our day. Jake, thanks so much.
Hey, thanks for your time. I appreciate being on.
Oh, this is going to be great. Folks, once again, Cowboy State Daily morning show with Jake Nichols launching October 1st, 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. weekdays. You're going to find it here on Cowboy State Daily. You'll be able to, as we get closer to it, we're going to be bringing you more information on Cowboy State Daily. So you'll be able to see where we're at, how you can listen, and please also feedback. Let us know what you think about Cowboy State Daily, about our news, about our morning show that we've got coming up, about these podcasts. We want to hear from you. So let us know, who should we talk to next on Cowboy State Daily's The Roundup? Who should Jake have on as a guest for the Cowboy State Daily morning show? Let us know what you've got going on and what's important to you so that we can then reflect that back. Folks, thanks for tuning into the Roundup. I want to give a big shout out here before we go. I want to make sure that people know you're listening to us as a podcast. We've got other great podcasters in the state too, including the Wyoming Business Alliance. They've got the Business from the Basement podcast. And if you're an entrepreneur or a news junkie, you're going to want to check out Wyoming's top business podcast, Business from the Basement. So check those things out on the same platforms that you're finding us here on Cowboy State Daily's The Roundup. Jake Nichols, good luck. We're very excited about getting started with this, and we're so glad that we've had you on Cowboy State Daily as a writer for so long. That won't change, folks. He said he's still going to write, so no worries there. Jake, have a great day.
Thank you. You too.
All right, folks, thanks for tuning into the Roundup. Have a wonderful week.